Hello and welcome to Byju's IAS. Let's begin your daily quiz for today. Question number 1 on your screen is this. Consider the following statements with regards to the UNESCO Creative Cities Network. Number 1. The UNESCO Creative Cities Network, that is UCCN, was created in 2004 to promote cooperation with and among cities that have identified creativity as a strategic factor for sustainable urban development. Second, the network covers six creative fields, that is, crafts and folk arts, media arts, film, design, gastronomy, and music. Third, Chennai recently became the sixth Indian city to be made a part of this network. Which of these given statements is or are correct? The correct answer here is A. One only is correct, the other two statements are wrong. The second statement is wrong because the network identifies cities based on seven and not six creative fields. Apart from the six mentioned here, the seventh one is literature. The third statement also is wrong because recently it is Srinagar that has become the sixth city of India to become a part of this network, and that is precisely the reason why we are discussing this question today. Because of this article in the Hindu newspaper, which says that Srinagar is now a part of this UCCN, that is the UNESCO Creative City Network. Srinagar became the sixth city to be a part of this network. Srinagar has been identified as one of the cities that has recognized crafts and folk arts as a part of its entire culture. Interestingly, the process for Srinagar's nomination in this category was undertaken and funded by the World Bank funded Jhelum Tavi Flood Recovery Project. The Prime Minister yesterday also tweeted about this global recognition, saying that it will bring a lot of joy and development opportunities for people in Jammu and Kashmir. Before Srinagar, the other five Indian cities that had already been named as a part of this network included Jaipur in 2015 from the category of crafts and folk arts, that is the same as Srinagar, Varanasi 2015 in the category of music, Chennai 2017 again music category, Mumbai and Hyderabad in 2019, Mumbai from the category of films, while Hyderabad from the category of gastronomy. Question number 2. Consider the following statements with regards to the Padma Awards conferred by the Government of India. Number 1. The Padma Shri is the fourth highest civilian award of the Government of India. Second, these awards were instituted in 1950 when the Constitution came into force. Third, the Government of India decides the winners of these awards, with the common citizens having no role to play in the process. Which of these given statements is or are incorrect? Since you have to choose the incorrect statements, the answer here would be B, since second and the third statements are wrong. The Padma Shri is the fourth highest civilian award of the Government of India after the Bharat Ratna, Padma Vibhushan and the Padma Bhushan awards. These awards are announced by the Government of India every year on India's Republic Day. Second statement is wrong since these awards started in 1954 and not in 1950. The third statement also is wrong because recently the Government of India has established an online portal under which even the common citizens of India can nominate people who they think deserve to get the Padma Awards. The reason why we are asking this question is because yesterday the President of India conferred the Padma Awards, including the Padma Vibhushan, Padma Bhushan, and Padma Shri Awards. These were announced earlier but were conferred by the President just yesterday in a ceremony organized at Rashtrapati Bhavan. Notably, these awards are not just given to the Indian citizens but also foreigners who have made a contribution in the development of India in any manner. The notable recipients of the award yesterday included Arun Jaitley and Sushma Swaraj, both of them who got the Padma Vibhushan posthumously. Apart from that, the former president of Mauritius, Anirudh Jugnauth, also got the Padma Vibhushan Award posthumously for their contribution in India's development. Other recipients of the Padma Vibhushan included the famous boxer MC Mary Kom and Sri Vishesh Tirth Swamiji of Udupi. Next, question number 3. The sportsperson Emma Raducanu became famous throughout the world for which of the following achievements? Number 1. She became the youngest tennis player to get to the world number 1 rank. Second, she became the first female tennis player to win both singles and doubles titles at Wimbledon. Third, she became the first singles qualifier to win a Grand Slam title. Fourth, she became the first female tennis player to win all the 4 Grand Slams in one single year. The answer to this sports question is C. That is, she became the first ever singles qualifier to win the Grand Slam title when she won the US Open. A qualifier means before the actual tournament starts, some smaller players who are not well known are given a chance to compete amongst themselves so that a few of them can be chosen and asked to play in the main tournament. That is how qualifiers are chosen. She became the first ever player to come through qualifier and end up winning the Grand Slam. If you have been following the World T20 cricket, you would know nations such as Scotland, Namibia. These are the nations that came up after qualifying in the pre tournament matches. Similarly, she in the US Open qualified for the tournament by playing a qualifier and then ended up winning the Grand Slam. She was in the news in the Hindu newspaper today because now she is in the world top 20. She belongs to UK. In fact, she is UK's number 1 tennis player right now, just 18 years old. Next, question number 4. As per NASA's definition, a meteor storm must have at least 100 meteors per hour, 1000 meteors per hour, 10,000 meteors per hour, or 1 lakh meteors per hour. The answer here is B. As per NASA, a meteor storm must have at least 1000 meteors per hour. The reason why we are asking this question is because of a pretty interesting event, that is the Leonids meteor shower. That is an event that occurs annually in the month of November. However, once every 33 years, this meteor shower converts into a meteor storm with at least 1000 meteors coming across per hour. This event of meteor shower will be active between 6th and the 30th of November and will reach its peak activity on 17th of November. The debris that we will see in the sky will be from a small comet codenamed 55P Temple Tuttle. Since this debris takes about 33 years to orbit the sun, that is why after every 33 years it turns into a meteor storm with a lot of meteors coming together at great speeds, which are around 71 kilometer per second. They can be seen from the earth because of their bright colors, which is a result of the friction between the meteoroid and the molecules in the Earth's atmosphere. In between these days of 6th of November and the 30th of November, the meteors would be visible on a cloudless night when the moon is not very bright. Next, question number 5 is a previous year question from 2019. The ninth schedule was introduced in the Constitution of India during the Prime Ministership of Jawaharlal Nehru, Lal Bahadur Shastri, Indira Gandhi, or Morarji Desai. The correct answer here is Jawaharlal Nehru. As you know, the ninth schedule became a part of the Indian Constitution through the first constitutional amendment in 1951. Since it was introduced in 1951, it is pretty clear that it was the tenure of Jawaharlal Nehru. The ninth schedule, as you know, was specifically introduced to give protection to the laws of parliament with regards to the land reforms. The ninth schedule originally meant that any law made by the parliament or by the state legislature and placed in the ninth schedule will not be challenged in the Supreme Court by anyone. That is, the laws of the ninth schedule were to get complete immunity from the judiciary. However, in 2007, in the IR Kolho case, the Supreme Court rejected the argument, saying that even the laws placed in the ninth schedule cannot violate the basic structure of the Indian Constitution. Time now to move to the fact of the day, and today we will be discussing about India's submarine strength. It became relevant and was covered in the news because the CBI recently put charges against two serving and retired officers of the Navy, saying that they have shared the secret details of India's ongoing modernization project of submarines with other nations, thus putting India's defense program in danger. This gives us a good time to understand the status of India's submarines, how many submarines do we have of different types, and where do we stand as compared to the other nations. Right now, India has 15 conventional diesel electric submarines that run on diesel and electric energy, also called as the SSK, while one nuclear ballistic submarine called SSBN. Remember, these SSBN submarines are nuclear powered submarines, meaning since they run on nuclear energy, they can remain under the water for many days without the need to come to the surface. Since they can remain under the water surface for many days, it is very difficult for the other nations or their navy to detect the presence of such submarines, which gives us an upper hand. The SSBN submarine that we have is Arihant. India also is in the process of commissioning one more SSBN submarine called Arighat, which is expected to be a part of India's arsenal in the coming months. The issue with India's submarines is that most of them are over 25 years old and many of them are undergoing a lot of changes and modernization. India got its very first submarine in 1967 from USSR called INS Kalvari. Before going on the 1971 war with Pakistan, India had four submarines which played a major role in India gaining an upper hand in the Bangladesh war. Till the 1980s, most of India's submarines were given to it by the USSR, and later on in the 1990s, Germany also started helping India by supplying its own submarines, which were later commissioned into India. In 1997, the Ministry of Defense approved a plan under the project called Project 75 or P75. The plan was that India will acquire 24 submarines under this particular project. However, after the Kargil War of 1999, India decided that rather than taking submarines from outside, the project should be renamed as P75I, where I stands for Indian. The government decided that rather than buying so many submarines from outside, it would be better to have transfer of technology from foreign manufacturers so that the submarine technology is taken from outside but they are built in India under the P75I project. However, the article tells you that P75I project has faced considerable delays and only a handful of submarines have been delivered by the project so far. The first delivery under the project, which should have been made in 2012, was only made in December 2017. In the meanwhile, China has used this opportunity to race ahead of India in its nuclear capability. China right now has 50 diesel powered attack submarines as compared to 15 of India. China has also constructed 12 nuclear submarines in the last 15 years, while India stands at one and is in the process of commissioning the other one very soon. India also is only one of the six nations in the world apart from US, UK, Russia, France and China to have SSN class nuclear powered attack submarines. India got its first SSN submarine in the form of INS Chakra from the Soviet Union on lease. We returned it back before the lease expired. In 2012, we got another one called INS Chakra 2 from Russian Navy, which works as the SSN powered submarine with the Indian Navy right now. SSN class submarines, since they are nuclear powered, are considered to be much more efficient than SSK class submarines. The government now has decided that of the new project that is focusing on building submarines, most of the submarines would be SSN rather than SSK. This brings us to the end of today's video. Thank you so much for watching.